Hi, my name is Gokul Narayan, and I'm the lead faculty at the Asian School of Cyber Laws. And in this video, we're going to be talking about a recent controversy that took place in Delhi that's relating to the boys' locker room Instagram handle. Now, this Instagram handle basically is a collection of a bunch of boys who were brought on together by an 18-year-old administrator. And he added members to this group ranging from the age of 15 to the 18, all of them being boys. The controversy actually is relating to the kind of conversations that took place and the kind of information that was shared on this group, and hence this video. However, I must clarify that this is not relating to the social or the moral point of view relating to the incident that took place. This is strictly a legal point of view where I'm going to be discussing the most likely sections that are attracted under the various Indian laws that could be made applicable. Again, having said that, we also need to understand that this is based on the information in terms of the facts that are available to me. And I'd like to begin this video with discussing those facts. So the facts that are available to me are as follows. The group was created by an 18-year-old administrator, and he brought onto the group other boys ranging from the age of 15 to 18 from various schools in Delhi. Now, on this group, these boys had conversations about acquaintances, girls, who some of them knew, and the conversations were sexually tainted. In fact, pretty aggressive in nature, in which there were suggestions which were thrown out and discussions which were had on raping them, gang raping them, and so on and so forth. There were also images that were exchanged on these groups by some of the members. Some of them were nude images of these girls, and some others were morphed images of the girls, which were available, the original images being available on public domain, but the morphed images were created and shared on this group. So the controversy actually revolves around the illegality of the actions that were done, wherein rape and gang rape was discussed and the morphed images and content was exchanged. So let's look at the various Indian laws that will be applicable in this given scenario. And let's begin this conversation with a discussion on the most relevant law in the current circumstances, that being the Information Technology Act. Quick fact update. Just as we are about to release this video, it's come to light that one of the conversations that took place on the group regarding gang rape was actually initiated by a girl posing as a boy. However, it's impossible to know how many other members of the group actually participated in this conversation, and therefore the academic discussion to follow still remains extremely important. Back to the video. Let's begin with Section 67 of the Information Technology Act, which talks about prohibition of publication or transmission of material in electronic form which is obscene in nature. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire section, but the operative part of the section states that if anybody publishes or transmits any material which is likely to tend to deprave or corrupt people, having regard to all relevant circumstances, who see, read, or hear the matter embodied in it shall be punished. In this case, we're talking about the conversations which were sexually tainted, talking about rape and gang rape, having the ability to deprave and corrupt people who would have, with regard to the circumstances, considering the fact that these are children, and being exposed to such information would deprave and corrupt them. Therefore, I'm of the opinion that Section 67 would be a section that would be applicable in this given scenario. The next section that I'd like to consider is Section 67 capital B, which is a part of the amendment to the law that has been brought about and is a recent addition to this law. This section specifically talks about child pornography. The section reads as follows. Punishment for publishing or transmission of material depicting children in sexually explicit act, etc. in electronic form. The operative part of the section is whoever creates texts or digital images, collects, seeks, browses, downloads, advertises, promotes, exchanges, or distributes material in any electronic form depicting children in obscene or indecent or sexually explicit manner. So over here, what's basically happened is there is a distribution and publication in electronic form relating to children, since the girls were all minors, relating to children, which was in the form of text as well as images, which showed these girls in an obscene as well as indecent manner. And therefore, section 67 capital B subclause B also could be made applicable in this situation. Now let's talk about the POCSO Act, or the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act of 2012. Now, as recently as March 2020, there was an amendment which was brought into force, which we are concerned with. Section 15(1) of this act talks about any person who stores or possesses pornographic material in any form, including electronic form, relating to children, and then fails to delete or destroy or report such content to the relevant authority with the intention to share or distribute such content shall be punished under the provisions of this section. So let's consider this section in the context of the scenario that we have. There was information that was exchanged on the group which included nude and morphed images. The question is, can we put that into the category of pornographic content? The unfortunate part is the word pornographic material has not been defined under the Act. But one could safely presume that nude images and conversations of a sexual nature which have happened can be construed to mean that the images that were exchanged and the morphed content that was exchanged could be pornographic material. Having said that, since it's relating to children and since it was shared on the group, Section 15(1) would very squarely apply to the given scenario. The relevant provision under the IPC in the current scenario is that relating to the act of voyeurism, or the act of watching another person without that person's permission. I'm going to read out the relevant part of this section, Section 354 capital C. It reads as follows. Any man who watches or captures the image of a woman engaging in a private act in circumstances where she would usually have the expectation of not being observed either by the perpetrator or by any other person at the behest of the perpetrator, or disseminates such image shall be punished with first conviction. So it talks about, this section basically talks about a man watching a woman or capturing the image of a woman in circumstances in which the woman was likely to presume that her privacy would be maintained, and violating such privacy, he either watches or then disseminates this information. We are also concerned with an explanation which is provided to this section, which reads as follows. Where the victim consents to the capture of the image or any act, but not to their dissemination to third persons, and where such image or act is disseminated, such dissemination shall be considered an offense under this section. Now let's consider what happened in this case. There were some nude images that were exchanged on this group. Now, even if these nude images were made available by the girls voluntarily to these boys, the presumption is that it was shared in trust and in between the boy and girl who were in a relationship, presumably. Or even if they were not in a relationship, it was supposed to be kept privy between these two individuals. The fact that it was shared, and again I'm presuming over here, without the permission of the girl, would squarely bring 354C and an explanation to 354C under clause 2 into operation. Since this information has been disseminated without the permission of the girl, and again I'm putting it out there that this is a presumption that I'm making, considering the fact that this presumption is correct, this section would squarely be applicable to this given scenario. Let us now look at sections 120 capital A and 120 capital B of the Indian Penal Code. Now, these sections basically deal with the concept of criminal conspiracy and its punishment. But before we go into whether this section applies to the given scenario or not, let's first break down the basic ingredients of what criminal conspiracy is. So, criminal conspiracy can basically be broken down into three parts. First of all, there must be an objective that needs to be accomplished. Secondly, there must be certain steps or a scheme that is created towards the accomplishment of such an objective. And third, there have to be two or more people between whom there is an understanding towards the accomplishment of such an objective, and there are certain steps which are taken towards the accomplishment of this objective. Now, considering the facts of the case that are available to us, one can only presume that there would have been a discussion about the rape and the gang rape of these girls by the members of the group that we are referring to. Now, if there is a consensus which can be drawn out from the conversation when we have access to it, and it can be established that there were two or more people who were involved in the discussion regarding the gang rape or the raping of a girl, and then they further went on to say how or when or where they would do these acts, then the basic constituents of section 120A could be satisfied, and the concept of criminal conspiracy could be applied to the members of the group who had a discussion regarding this on the group. Let us now look at the concept of abetment under the IPC. This has been discussed under sections 107 and 108 of the Indian Penal Code, and basically talk about the following. It says, a person abets the doing of a thing who, first, instigates any person to do that thing. Secondly, engages with one or more person or persons in any conspiracy for doing that thing. And thirdly, intentionally aids by act or illegal omission the doing of that thing. Now, over here, the only offense under the IPC we believe has been successfully done is the act of voyeurism. Although raping and gang raping were discussed amongst the members of this group, it's not an act that actually took place. Therefore, the question of abetment of such an act does not take place. However, since the offense of voyeurism seems to have been fulfilled, consequently, the abetment to the commission of the act of voyeurism can also be considered, which basically means that if there are conversations in the group which can suggest that one or more members instigated or aided or suggested the sharing of the pictures of the nude pictures of the girls on the group, then on such members, the act of abetment can also apply. Let us now consider the concept of abetment as provided under the Information Technology Act under Section 84 capital B. We need to distinguish this from the concept of abetment under the Indian Penal Code because of a primary difference between the two sections. Under the Indian Penal Code, the concept of abetment talks about not only abetting illegal acts but also talks about illegal omissions, whereas the Information Technology Act is a narrower provision which talks only about the commission of illegal acts and the abetment thereof. So if you look at section 84B, we are looking at it in the context of, first of all, section 67, which talks about the prohibition of publication and transmission of obscene content, and section 67 capital B, which talks about child pornography. If we are able to establish that there are conversations which could be seen on the group which suggest that there was an abetment to both these sections of 67 and 67B by the members of the group who may actually have not personally committed the act but merely abetted the commission of such an act, then section 84B could also be brought into application. From here, we also need to look at the fact that the members of this group vary in age. So there are members who are 15, 16, 17, and 18 years of age. The members who have attained the age of majority or 18 or above will be considered under the regular system of laws that we have in terms of punishment. However, We have a separate set of rules which apply to children, which is provided under the Juvenile Justice Act. And both the IT Act, the Juvenile Justice Act, and POCSO say that any person who's below the age of 18 can be considered to be a child. Over here, what we need to consider is that if there is a child on whom any of the provisions that we have discussed apply, then that person, that child, that boy in this instance will not be brought before the regular criminal courts, but will be produced before the Juvenile Justice Board as per the conditions laid down in the Juvenile Justice Act. And we also need to consider the fact that as per the latest Juvenile Justice Act, the maximum punishment that can be provided for any offense committed by a child is 3 years. So thank you so much for watching this video. I've tried my level best to cover as many legal concepts and ideas as I thought would be applicable to this controversy. But I'd like to remind you that this should not be treated as a legal opinion, but a mere discussion on the possibility of the sections that could apply, considering the facts that are placed before us. So thank you so much once again for watching the video. If you like it, feel free to share it. And I hope you've already subscribed to our channel, and don't forget to leave us a thumbs up. Thank you.